Okay, here we are. Good morning, and good morning, Dr.
Good
Joe
morning.
Hug. Good morning to everybody watching us this morning. It is November the 6th, actually, and it is once again midweek here in Tokyo. It is the day before, the evening before in other parts of the world, or earlier this morning as well here in Asia. So, thank you very much for joining us again. And as you very well know already, Dr. Joe Hug will be talking about hidden champions and what the intersection between small and medium sized businesses and startups is here in Japan, but not only in Japan. Of course, there is a lot to learn from the stories Joe tells us because they are about companies here in Japan that have been in business for several decades at least. Some of them have been in business even longer. And even though there is a general perception that the Japanese businesses never change, obviously that's not the case all the time. And many of these businesses have survived because they have changed on the way, they have been resilient, they have pitched, they have pivoted, and we're going to see one more story today before we continue with the rest, of course, down the road. So, Joe, before we continue, or maybe before I do the plug for our first sponsor, well, maybe I can give you the screen for a brief briefing this morning, so that
Sure.
yes, yes, okay, please go ahead.
Oh, good morning, and thank you, Maya, for always inviting me to share these, as you said, these wonderful stories of not not particularly success in the sense of Silicon Valley, billions of dollars, but certainly success when it means that they these small SME companies are able to survive over decades sometimes. And to me, I find it just fascinating. And thank you for letting me share these stories of the aftermath once we go there and interview the CEOs and presidents. And we learn so much from
Well,
them, and they're willing to share.
I'm happy to hear that because when you say the aftermath, it sounds like, ooh, something really scary.
It
But
is a little
sometimes,
scary.
yes, but I also understand that some of those companies, they also go through really deep crisis
Mm,
moments, and they do survive the aftermath of those crises. So there is a lot to learn from them there. Before we go into details about today's company, please let me say a brief thank you to our first sponsor, that is Kanagawa Chuoju Taku and Kanachu. So you can find them online at kanachu.com. Kanachu offers bilingual services to individuals who want to buy and sell real estate in Tokyo and Yokohama. They also do rentals in Yokohama. So if you are willing to have to live there, to move there, to rent a room there, contact them, kanachu.com, find them online. You can also contact James Howell on LinkedIn or reach him directly at james@kanachu.com so that you can work with them. Their services are customized, they will be customized to your needs. One more good thing is that they offer bilingual services in Japanese and in English. So, no matter how good your Japanese or English or how bad they are, you will have no problem with James. So, thank you very much for this, Joe. And of course, today Joe has prepared another bunch of slides for us to make the journey of this company, the company he's going to talk about, easier to understand
mm,
and to
yeah,
follow. So yes, please let me know when you're ready for the first slide.
yeah,
Maybe we can bring it on stage even now
yeah. We
or
can bring it
later.
on stage. Oh, now it's
Okay,
fine.
now it's fine.
Yeah, and thanks for this. Yeah,
Here
thanks
we
for the
go.
sponsors also. That also helps, right? Yeah. So today's, I'm, I may have mentioned it several times before. I'm a visual type of person.
Hmm.
Um, Now, what's really interesting is there's some academic papers out there that say there's no such thing as visual learners. So, but
Interesting,
you know,
yes. Mm.
yeah, if there's no scientific proof that there is visual learners, fine. If there is, great. But I certainly love visuals. So,
Right. In,
so
yes,
sorry.
I'm sorry to interject here.
Yeah,
I also remember that there was well, there are some people saying that there is no photographic memory. So,
yeah,
and maybe that is related to what others say that people are not visual learners, but at the same time, I think that we consume much more information through our
mm,
vision, right, through pictures and images than through our other senses. So it sounds to me like, well, data which is actually conflicting, but who
yeah.
knows?
Well, that's the beauty. I think that's the beauty of science, anyways, is that you're always going to find conflicting results, and
Mm-hmm.
that's good. That's okay. That's good. I,
Yes,
I think I think in research, if you keep getting the same result, you have to doubt those results because you may be avoiding or ignoring certain aspects of your research, and then how could it be exactly the same every time?
mm-hmm.
And
Right.
then
I agree with you.
if you test yourself and then those results are exactly the same, then okay, fine, but you should at first doubt it.
Indeed. And that's the point of science. So I love what many people say that science is never settled and
Right,
you always have to question your discoveries and conclusions. So
right,
that's
right,
something I'm
right.
happy to hear from you as well.
Yeah, yeah, I'm always quite open-minded about things, and I tell my students, always doubt everything.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I'm telling it to you, or it's printed in a book, doesn't mean it's real.
Right.
In fact, I'll tell you, I know we're not on the topic yet of today's main topic, but I was talking to somebody recently, and I told them whenever I have students from abroad, um, and again, this there's no particular reason why I'm choosing Chinese students, but it happened that I was teaching this course at the University of Tokyo a few years ago, and it happened that all my students were Chinese, all of them. Like there was no Japanese students, so I thought, okay, cool. Um, and what I noticed is that a lot of times the conversations with the students were much different, and they tended to disagree a lot with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually began to like it and enjoy that, and say, yeah, keep doing that, keep disagreeing, because it gets us to discuss things a little bit more deeper and understand things. So uh,
Yes.
nowadays, if I have a good group of students, I always tell them, whatever I say today, please try and disagree with me.
I like that perspective of actually intentionally finding or looking for points you disagree with
Hmm.
intentionally, because that drives discussion, it drives debate as well.
Hmm.
And many times, maybe not always, but many times it actually helps you see the point or the case in point from different perspectives and analyze it from different perspectives. So that's really a good thing, and I love that. Maybe it's important that not only you, but other people or other professors start saying the same thing. And yeah, I can say that in my MBA program we had quite a few of such people who welcomed the disagreement, but we had to be,
Great.
of course, yes, we have to be also very positive about that,
Sure.
like right. So it was really a very good way of learning, and it is still, I believe. But thank you
Yeah.
for bringing this up. Yeah, it's a very important point.
It actually connects to today's story, anyways. But I truly believe that it's okay to disagree, and maybe at the end, the parties still will never agree, and that's
Mhm.
okay, as long as both of them support their opinions, right, or support their side of the understanding. It's I think it's where people just disagree and then don't give a reason why or explain themselves. That's when things break down. But
Yeah.
it certainly touches on today's topic, by the way. Uh,
Great.
what we're gonna do, which I did last time, and I actually enjoyed it because it was much easier to tell the story that way. Is we're gonna go on what a sort of a customer journey, right?
Yes.
A journey of the company as it evolved, and the things that they encountered in their little journey. However, I must say that most of the journey main points are more recent. And I'll explain to this as I go along. And the reason for that is because many of these SMEs um, were doing their original business, whether it was a service or creating a product, for many years without change.
Mm-hmm.
So they were doing it for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. There was no need for change back then. And back then we're talking prior to World War II or just after World War II, right? There was really very little need for change. However, as industries progressed in Japan and technologies improved and the living conditions also improved for many Japanese, then that's when they kind of went through their own industrial revolution, if you will, right? And
Yes.
so there was this constant need of change. And that's why in today's story, you're going to see that. So you're going to see like this, it seems like the first 30, 40, 50 years of the company, and then nothing really happening. And then suddenly everything's happening in the last 30, 40 years.
All
So,
right. Yeah.
but don't let it dissuade you, dear listeners, as you listen to today's story, because it is a story of, it's a fantastical story that I think could be actually made into a movie, um, of personal struggles and personal triumphs, but also as a small team, kind of a family company, and that it connects directly to entrepreneurship of the same journey you might face. Uh, it will ring true to some of the listeners. And
Right.
so, as you can guess from the first slide, Maya, what kind of company is this?
Yes, Joe, before we move to the slide, I'll bring it up on
Sure.
stage. We're getting
Yeah.
some feedback that you
Oh,
probably need to talk a little bit closer to your microphone.
closer to my mic. Okay.
Yes.
I hope this
So,
is good.
could you please try a little bit harder?
Yeah. Let me see. Let me look. Check my settings. Make sure I'm using the right mic.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I can see.
Internal mic.
Okay.
Internal mic. Yeah.
All right. So, Hiroku-san writes, now I can hear you. Thank you very much for the feedback, Hiroku-san. That's very helpful. And
Yeah. Thank you.
yes, thank you very much. So, Joe, please forgive me for the interruption. So let's go to
Oh no
the
no. So let's go back to the first slide.
the first slide. Yes, here we go.
That's number two. Ah, there you go. So what kind of company is this, Ryan? What do you think?
Well, when I look at this picture, I think that this is a company that produces some kind of medicines.
Ah,
But I
it
mean, the
does.
bigger
Yeah,
one at
yeah.
the
It does look.
bottom, right? But
Yeah, that's
well,
kind of
when
like
I
the
look at the
Western
right,
Western way of looking at it. Yes.
right. So, but when I look at the smaller pictures on top in the top row, I understand that it's not actually a pharmaceutical company. It's something else. And in the middle on the top row, maybe that's rice. I
Mm-hmm.
mean,
Yes.
the the employee working there and turning that big pan over is probably full of rice, cooked rice. I don't
Yes.
know. I may be mistaken.
No, you're absolutely correct.
Okay. Oof.
Uh,
Thank you.
okay, so they're dressed like they're making some sort of pharmaceutical, but actually they're making rice in one of the pictures. And what is the end result?
Onigiri? Maybe. Or obento? What is it?
Yes, it's in Japanese obento, but in
Obento,
English we would
yes.
say a boxed lunch, right?
Yes, boxed lunch. Yeah.
Right.
Cooked
So that's
boxed
what
lunch.
cooked box lunch, the delicious box lunches that you can
Mm-hmm.
get at many convenience or supermarkets. And that is their specialty. That's what this company does.
Oh, right.
And they are the leaders in box lunches, but not for supermarkets and not for stores.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think they sell these?
Well, I imagine, based on my experience with my previous employer, we would actually order boxed lunches for the people who wanted to have some to a company that cooked and delivered them. So I imagine maybe they cook lunches for different organizations, not just for, let's say, convenience stores and selling directly to, to individual customers.
Yeah, yeah, you got it. Yeah, that's exactly what they
Woohoo!
do. Woohoo! You read my notes. No, I didn't have any notes.
No notes there, though.
No notes. But yeah, exactly. Now, again, I'm sorry to the listeners. I cannot mention the name of the company. We don't have that permission, but um, they don't mind that we share their story. Not nevertheless. So hopefully in the future we begin to get some of these companies that do agree to for us to post their websites or their names.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the reason for this is that a lot of these SMEs have survived over so many years, and in a sort of way, like that anonymity. They like that they've got their niche, that they're the leaders in their niche, and they really don't seek, um, any type of marketing per se. And
Right.
and we try to respect that. However, some of them are changing. Some of the ones we interview are changing, and they really are. And this company in particular is changing, and we'll get to that here in a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, slide two.
Great. Yes.
So this is the part where I said that nothing really changes so much the first 40 years or so. I think it was about 40 or 50 years, but let's go through their journey anyhow. Uh, Starting from the left, you see the four dots there. The story began with a kind of a Romeo and Juliet kind of story.
That's a sweet segue into
Isn't
the
it? I mean,
the journey. Yes.
the journey begins truly as two young people who fell in love and whose families did not agree with their getting married.
Mm-hmm.
So they eloped at
Right.
the age of 19. Now, if you think about that, that's when you were 19. What were you doing when you were 19, right? You were probably thinking about shopping,
Yeah.
not really thinking about surviving or creating a family, right, at 19. Most of us,
No,
anyway. Yeah.
not really
So,
thinking about family now.
right, right. I mean, if any of you out there have children, can you imagine your child in 19 saying, I'm going to run away, get married, and make it on my own? How
Mm.
worried we would be as a parent, right?
Yeah. I mean, with so little life experience, just
Mm-hmm.
19 years, it's a scary thought for every parent, I think. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
when I was 19, I was still, I was just thinking about my next class and not, I couldn't, yes, I never thought of having children at that age. To
I
me, it
know.
was like, well, I need at least another several years, before I'm ready to have a family, to start a family.
Yeah. Well, I'll
Yeah.
tell you, I was 18. so almost 19. I was 18, living away from home, and I had a roommate at the time. There was three or four of us living in a small apartment, and he was he was new to the group. He was coming in, moving in, and then yeah, I got to know him, and I asked him. I said, so "How old are you?" And he said, "I'm 27." I said, "Oh my God, you're so old."
Right.
So
Yeah.
27 when you're 18 years old, 27 is like years later.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I also remember for some reason 27 was an age which we talked a lot about when I was in my teenage years with my classmates, with my
Mm.
teachers. And I don't know the reason why, but I also remember that I was thinking that when I got 27, I would have figured everything out,
Ah,
and I would be, yes, so because I would be an adult.
right.
And yes, so it's really funny because when we are still young, we think that, people who are just even several years or 10 years later, older than us, actually, they know everything for sure. And I want to say here to add something about Tim today. So Tim cannot join us because he has family obligations today, but he also came to Japan when he was 17 years old.
Ah,
So it was like, imagine that, coming to the other side of the world or going to the other side of the world at the age of the ripe age of 17.
mm.
So it's fascinating. For me, when I was 17, I left home to go to university. So I started living on my own at that age. But it wasn't like, going across the ocean, right? So, and
Right.
I wonder, Joe, what you did when you were 17. So,
Uh, Probably fighting with my classmates.
okay.
But
Well, that's
yeah, I mean, you know, that is an interesting beginning of the story. It's part of the tale of the story that they tell. Those who ask about the history of the company, and then of
mm-hmm,
course, because like many SMEs, just like this one, it's family owned. So from generation to generation to generation. So it is a story that is dear to the heart, and everybody knows about the start. So the young couple eloped. Um, they didn't hate their family, obviously not, but they just didn't understand why the family didn't agree to their love. They got
right,
married, and they had to decide what to do to survive. And so, why they fell upon the udon selling udon noodles, we didn't ask, but that is what they started to do, was selling udon noodles. Perhaps at the time, and this was just after World War II, I think. Maybe that was the easiest thing to sell at the time, right? There was not much
right.
food, and yeah, technology was way too expensive, so maybe that was the
Mm-hmm.
thing to do, right? And
Maybe.
so that's yeah, and the original udon shop that they created was actually named after one of the fathers of the couple. So uh, still loving their family, right? They still love their family. It
Yeah.
wasn't like they ran away and we hate them, you know. Um, so that they did that for many many years. I believe it was something like 15 or so years. Um, and the customer satisfaction just kept getting, the feedback was kept coming back and kept getting better and better, saying, "Wow, this is the best udon. I really enjoy your udon." And it was one of those days when a customer said, "Can you deliver to my office?
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes I don't have time to come and eat. Is there a possible way for you to deliver?" So this was sort of a pivot point for the company to start thinking, well, maybe we should take on some staff to help us and deliver these udon noodles amongst other things that the customers may want. And that's what that other
Mhm.
picture you see here. It's actually milk. It's supposed to be milk.
Milk. All
Yeah,
right. Well, it looks like milk, certainly, after we hear that it is milk.
right. It looked like
Yes.
sugar, but I couldn't find an AI generated milk jar.
That's, yeah. So, well, AI probably doesn't go that far back, doesn't remember
Right.
the milk jars.
Yeah, there you go. That's probably the reason. There's no historical background information for AI to generate
Hmm.
the old type of milk containers that we used to have. Well, in my age. so
Okay.
so they started delivering udon, milk, and other little things that would customers required at the same time, right? Like, hey, I want some udon, some milk, and some sugar or whatnot, and then they would deliver that to their customers, and that's how they started. That's the beginning. Fun, right? Simple.
Well, it looks very simple at this point of time, yes.
Great. Let's go to the next slide. All right. So we left off at the customer satisfaction, customers requesting for them to deliver, right? That's where we left
Yes.
off. And so again, for the next 15, 20 years or so, the company grew in sales. They grew in word of mouth and customer satisfaction, so much so that people started saying, gosh, can you make these obentos and these udons that you're making at your little restaurant for our company?
Mm-hmm.
And sure, we can do that. Small local companies, maybe 10 employees, 20 employees. It wasn't big. And that company was so satisfied they would tell another company and
Right.
another company. And so that's how
Mm-hmm.
it happened. It was very organic growth, right?
Word of mouth.
Word of mouth.
Yes.
And I think this goes back. This is how I begin to connect things to entrepreneurship, is that entrepreneurs sometimes say, I've got this app, I've got this great idea, I'm going to make millions, let's go. Um, and they ignore the fact that a lot of times it's a good approach to go slowly, get that
Mm-hmm.
organic growth, get that feedback, the request from your customers, get to know that they are asking you to solve their problems or their pain points, and that you've got the right solution. And if you don't, then you just adjust accordingly. So this company, in the beginning, they noticed that customers wanted udon, and then the customers wanted delivery, and then the customers wanted obentos. So
Right.
they kept evolving and changing with what was uh, the market was asking for, right?
Yeah.
And as you can see, by the way, Maya, have you ever eaten at a corporate cafeteria, like a giant company cafeteria, manufacturing site?
No, not in Japan.
No, I have several times. They are so
Yes.
depressing.
Depressing. Oh
Yeah,
no. I'm sorry to hear that.
yeah. Everybody's quiet, and the men eat within like 3 minutes.
Really? Oh yeah, they just devour everything. That's what I have heard. I haven't
Yeah,
seen it in front of me with my own eyes, but I
they
have
just
heard
jump
that,
right in
yes.
there. Rah!
Yeah. Yeah, they have to eat fast. They don't
Yeah, they
have
do
time,
eat fast.
right?
Yeah, they eat
Yes.
fast and leave, and then go whatever chat with their friends. And while the
Mm.
ladies kind of take their time and enjoy the food and such.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
we're coming to a halfway point. Do you wanna do your part, and then we'll recontinue. But just before that, I'll tell you. Remind me. I have a funny story about a cafeteria.
Okay, yes, I will. And thank you so very much for helping me be on time with our thank you to the second sponsor today. So, to everybody who's been with us, you already know the name, House Inc. House Inc. offers bilingual service. I'm sorry. This is what happens. Okay. Starting from the beginning. House offers bilingual services in custom home design, construction, and renovations, plus commercial building construction. They can speak with you in English and Japanese, either language is fine. And once again, they will customize their services to your needs. To work with House, please reach out to Hana Uroshizawa Howell on LinkedIn, or you can easily find her contact details in the description video. The description of the video on YouTube. Do not hesitate. Reach out to her and talk with her and discuss with her your next project. So, and Joe, back to you. The funny story about the cafeteria, the corporate
There you go.
cafeteria. What happened
That's
there?
There you go. I forgot. I almost forgot. I have a short-term memory, but uh, I not too long ago, I
Yeah,
was, as you know, I do lots of consulting with companies. So most of the major companies I've consulted with them, right? Your Sony's, Mitsubishi's,
right. Yes.
Mitsui, Asahi, all these huge companies. I've
Mm-hmm.
visited their headquarters buildings and sometimes their manufacturing sites and do consulting. I won't mention which company, but it is famous, quite famous. I visited their manufacturing site for a 1 week intensive young early leadership development program, um,
Yes.
and I went there, and as part of the leadership program, these supervisors that were going to be getting promoted had to return to the manufacturing site to kind of remember what it was like to be a new employee, where most of the new employees go to manufacturing first, the manufacturing
Mm-hmm.
line. So we were all at the manufacturing site, right? And every day these obentos would come in, and I'll tell you, I'm so sorry, but some of these obentos were like not so delicious, and
Right.
um, to keep them fresh, what they do, I guess, is they keep them in these very cold coolers or maybe in ice. I'm not sure, but every time we got them, um, and you would open your bento and you would poke at the food, there was this little thin layer of ice in the food. Um,
Okay.
and it's like, oh my oh my goodness, I'm eating ice cream, kind of ice cream food. Um, but I ate it because it was free, right?
Right. Yes.
And over the next 3 or 4 days, what was happening, I noticed, was less and less people were coming to the cafeteria, um, until the day before the last day of the training session. So let's say the last day was a Friday,
Mm-hmm.
Thursday lunch on Thursday. I went to the cafeteria, and I was the only one out of about 300 people. I was the only
Okay.
one that Obento was that bad.
Oh, so everybody else was fine. That's what you
No,
mean.
everybody else had left. They didn't want to eat it.
I see what you. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Whew.
And so back then I couldn't read kanji. I still can't read kanji, most kanjis, but I didn't know how to turn on the lights to the cafeteria.
Okay.
Because usually somebody would come in early and turn it on, one of the workers,
Mm-hmm.
but nobody was there. I was the only one, and so I was eating my obento in a dark cafeteria. it, was,
Oh, my dear.
it was so sad.
That's
I wanted to cry, actually, but of course I didn't cry. But it was
well,
so
I'm sorry
sad.
to hear that story because yeah, like bad bento in a dark place and with nobody around you. Oh.
Yeah, no one to talk to, and it was
Mhm.
sad. Needless to say, I went back to that training part two a couple of weeks later. We had a part two, and that time the head of the HR of the company came from the headquarters, came and basically chastised everyone except me, um,
Okay.
and told them, you will eat the obentos from now on.
How about that?
Yeah, so I guess the company felt bad that they had made all these obentos and no one ate them, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, so going back to this company that we interviewed, um, they started selling the obentos to companies, right, who were requesting this, and they were doing really well, no problems at all. However, there came a time where there was an opportunity that a school asked them to deliver their obentos, and they pivoted. They said, "Okay, this is really what we would like to do. We would really like to support our young students. We love our company employee customers. We thank you so much, but we're going to shift. You know, we're going to pivot."
Right.
So they pivoted and started selling exclusively to schools, specifically elementary schools.
I see.
And again, the word of mouth, through word of mouth, other schools told other schools, and they were all telling each other. And they started getting all these contracts around the
Mm-hmm.
prefecture. And so they had to get more employees to help them create these obentos, and things were going really, really well. Next slide.
Okay. Here we go.
So things were going really, really well. Uh, this would have been about 15, 20 years ago. ISO became a big deal. I don't know if you're familiar with ISO, Maya.
Yeah. Yes, I
Yeah,
am.
yeah,
These are the standardization certificates that companies need to acquire,
right.
and they, in a sense, they actually what's that? They verifications for quality, right?
Yeah, yeah,
They ensure
that,
certain level of quality for almost every product that
yeah,
is
yeah,
in the market.
yeah. Interesting enough, in this point, when I was an undergraduate, so you can guess this would have been 30 years ago.
Okay. Yes.
Giving away my age, but when I was an undergraduate, I actually wrote a thesis paper on ISO because it was brand new. Like nobody knew what it meant and what it was about. And I wrote my thesis on ISO 9001 and 14001.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it wasn't until about maybe 10 years later that I started to hear rumblings about companies trying to get ISO qualified. And I used to say, "Oh my goodness, I wrote a paper about this. Oh, wow." Uh, but I don't know how I came across the topic, to be honest. I don't know. Maybe I saw it in a magazine or something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the company got ISO qualified. They were doing really well. They started opening new opportunities, new schools, around the prefecture. They did keep some of their corporate uh, customers, delivering to companies, but it was mostly focused on schools. Okay, so from the very beginning to this period, it's many years. Okay, so don't let this kind of confuse you, because now the next thing you see is coronavirus.
All right. So that's what happened basically. We see here that the company grew, they hired new employees, and then they acquired the ISO certification. And basically, acquiring the ISO certification was good for them, right? Because they
Yes.
still grew some. But the
Yeah.
point is that, well, with the pandemic, the coronavirus pandemic, suddenly business went down, and
Right.
probably that's when they probably lost most of their projects.
Yes. Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So I, the timeline here looks a little strange, but basically the company has been uh, in operations now over 50 years.
Okay.
So, and they've been doing really well all along. So then suddenly, as we all know around the world, coronavirus hit, and their sales went to zero. They lost
Real zero. Yes, zero
real
zero.
zero. like
Mm-hmm.
0.0.
Right.
And they lost all contracts. So the CEO
So.
said that she was basically crying, just crying every night, and didn't know what to do. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because as a family company, you feel like it's your responsibility to keep it going, right? I'm going to keep this going.
Yes.
At this point, it was her grandfather who had started it,
Mm-hmm.
and you feel like maybe it's me, maybe I'm a bad leader, maybe I've done something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't foresee something like this happening, and I didn't have a contingency plan or savings
Right.
enough to keep the company going. So, um, startups are the same way. Startups will sometimes have a great takeoff and,
Mm-hmm.
good customer feedback and sales are increasing, but suddenly something happens and it wipes them out. I remember there was an exercise machine, one of those,
Yes.
those ab exercise machines.
Oh yes. Yes, and there were a lot of sales online as well, I believe, of
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So
And there
yeah.
were so many of them, right? There was the
Mm-hmm.
different
Different
versions.
models and yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
versions. Yes.
Uh,
Mm.
well, there's a story, and I don't know if it's true. I should look it up. But there's a story that one of those makers, one of the more famous ones, one
Mm-hmm.
of their customers had placed his fingers in the wrong place and in the joint where
Oh
the
no.
machine opens and
Right.
closes, and the finger got
Mm-hmm.
cut off.
Oh,
Well, because of that, the
mm.
company had bad news press and basically went under. You know,
I see.
um, but we see this in other types of products. Baby, maybe like baby carriages, or
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times toys that has to do with babies. Like maybe it's being produced with lead paint.
Mm-hmm.
Parents learn about it and then they stop buying it, and the company shuts
Right.
down. They shut. So,
Yeah.
um, in this case, it was a natural disaster. They couldn't have really done anything, but the CEO felt she had um, failed as a leader.
Mm-hmm.
Next slide.
Yes.
Okay. So the next couple of slides, the next two slides we've got, are basically the last 4 years or 5 years since coronavirus hit, right? So
Mm-hmm.
so again, don't let the timeline kind of throw you off.
Okay.
Okay, so coronavirus hit. Their sales went to zero. Employees started complaining, um, even though the company didn't shut down. They were trying to keep it alive.
Mm-hmm.
Employees were upset. What's going on? Why this happened? And the CEO was just constantly crying, didn't know what to do, self questioning
Mm-hmm.
uh, her attributes as a leader, her personality, and her ability to lead people. Couldn't make the customers happy. I mean, the employees happy. So a mental pivot, and said, okay, I think I need to start talking to others to help me through this. You know,
Yeah.
uh, older or wiser mentors who can guide me, and got mentorship that way. Started talking to other business owners and meeting people who were telling her, look, it's not your fault
Mm-hmm.
as a leader.
Right.
Um, you've been doing the best you can. Don't quit.
Mm-hmm.
Pivot yourself, and you can overcome. And so, in the end, what they did was they kept the employees on the payroll. They didn't fire anybody,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and then just redefined themselves. That's that final point there. Is that they had meetings, internal meetings, and said, okay, how do we redefine ourselves? How do we change our core selves to say it's a new world out there, right?
Yeah.
New social issues, new social problems, new social diseases, etc. And they redefined themselves to say we're not just a bento maker, we are delivering food to society, we're trying to help society, right? So that change in their
Right.
thinking. Next slide.
Yes.
And I think this is our last slide, probably. Oh, second to last. uh, so because of that pivot, they started talking to the customers more closely and saying, we know that you're struggling through coronavirus also. How can we best work together? How can we still deliver food to your employees and obviously to the students as well? Because many students didn't have the funds. Families were struggling.
Mm-hmm.
And they got to know their customers much better, right? This close
Yes.
relationship. And I think startups need to do this as well, right? It's not about selling to customers, it's about getting to know your customers
Right.
deeply.
Yes. As you say, and I have seen this quite often too. Many startups actually they come up with an idea and they want to sell the idea. But the thing is that once you have, I mean, it's wonderful to have the idea, but you also need to talk with your potential customers at that point and see how
Mm,
that idea can help them, or if it should be modified or developed or even changed to a large extent so that it can serve the customers, right? And I like the question, how can we help you, right?
mm,
It is, I think that it is a forgotten question nowadays, because I remember when I first started working back home, I started working for an agency that organized inbound tours and also business meetings, and events and so on. So we were trained to say, when we answered the phone, how can I help you?
mm,
Right. And that is actually a very good question that I don't hear very often nowadays.
mm.
Right. And maybe we need to just remember that it is the way to go forward. Because if you cannot help your customers, they're not going to come to you. Right.
That's right. Or if they don't feel that you're willing to help.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, certainly. So yeah, I think the company's approach to reevaluating themselves, redefining who they were,
Mm-hmm.
and then looking at their customers in a different light, right? We're not seeing them as a way to make profit, rather a way to collaborate together and help each other through this
Yes.
terrible time in life, this post corona. They were doing so well, uh, or are still doing so well. Now they have increased their employee numbers to over 500,
Mm-hmm.
which is not your typical SME. SME, in my definition, a typical SME is probably 100 people or less. But so they're larger than the other companies we've interviewed,
Yeah.
which is a good thing. I think it's still a great thing. Um,
Yes.
they've started taking on non-Japanese workers. They noticed that this was a necessary thing. You know, local communities sometimes don't have enough people that want to have that kind of employment, so they had to pursue other ways of getting staff. Um, they're providing upskilling and reskilling programs for their staff to learn new skills if they want to move on to a different area of the company.
Yeah.
And so the thing here, that the theme that we keep seeing is change, 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 right?
Yes.
And they consider themselves an innovative company, and they've been told that they are an innovative company by the local newspapers.
Yes. If you don't mind me interjecting here too.
Yeah.
So I think that we have talked about this before, but one thing I want to say about innovation is that innovation comes in many forms,
Mm,
many colors as well. And I also remember that when I was reading the biography of Yamashita, uh, basically the founder of Yamashita Denki, so I realized that, well, innovation comes also in the process, the way you reinvent your processes or you develop them. And also, innovation comes in the way you market your products, or it can come in any other way. And I can see this with this particular company as well. So it is also the way you treat your employees, the way you allow them to grow. And
mm,
the funny thing, though, is that it's also interesting to me because I was not born and I was not raised in Japan. I came here, as an adult. And so when I talk with my Japanese family and my Japanese friends, and when I give the example of Yamashita Denki and how many innovations they actually implemented, everybody says, no, they didn't. They took other companies' products and they just made them better. So in
mm,
the Japanese mind, Yamashita Denki does not, well, I would say, in the general population's mind, probably Yamashita Denki didn't have that many innovations, even though the company was really innovative, just like this company you're talking about now. And I'm glad to hear from you that a lot of newspapers and also the company itself think that they are innovative, which is
mm,
important. And
mm.
I hope that more people actually in business and out of business realize that innovation comes in many, many forms and colors.
Absolutely, I agree with you. I think sometimes when we think of innovation, or to be honest, other things as well, like um, the word has escaped my brain right now, but there's another word that people also use that there's a narrow definition, right? But innovation in itself can be really a wider understanding of things. Like you said,
Yeah,
whether it's taking something original and then recreating it and improving upon it, that is still innovative, right? It's still,
it is
you don't
still,
have
yes.
you don't have to be the original creator of something. There's a
Yes.
quote. There's a famous quote, and I don't know who said it, but there's a famous quote that says, "Everything that can be created or discovered has already been."
Yes. So, indeed. This once again, it connects to. I think that it is a very Confucian, and also Zen view of the world because everything connects backwards, right?
Yes.
So what every idea we come up with has already been there, and for some reason, we reach it or we come to it because of our experiences, previous experiences, and so far and so on. But it is, yes, even though we don't want to believe it, yeah, dots connect backwards.
Yeah, they do.
And
They do.
everything has already been there.
Already been there.
Yeah.
Okay, our last slide.
Yes.
And, obviously, this is the last 3 or 4 years, um, this slide. Um, and during the interview, when we asked them, like, what are some of the challenges or some of the ways you're looking forward? And the answer was very interesting. They said goals, 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 but everything for society. I really
Right.
like that. That kind of answer. It wasn't one of those standardized answers. Oh, we're gonna be a higher tech company, or create new
Mm-hmm.
solutions. It was so simple. Goals, 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 and everything for society. I was like, oh, that's pretty good. I love that.
Yes.
Simple.
Yeah.
Um, so another pivot that you see there in the bottom left is they started to learn new laws that were coming out in Japan, as they
Mm-hmm.
relate to social issues, so that they could continuously improve their internal processes and maybe get new types of customers, which is one of the major pivots they've done in the last 2 years or so. Is that um, they started not accepting their traditional um, contracts anymore. In fact, they have to sadly decline some of these
Oh,
contracts that are coming in. Yeah, they're doing so well. And the reason for that is now they have what's called the big, hairy, audacious goals. BHAG. Um,
okay.
and what it is, a BHAG, usually startups have BHAGs. I'm going to be the number one
Mm-hmm.
in this industry, or we're going to be the biggest, or we're going to be the most profitable. Their BHAG is that they would like to export their know-how to other nations.
Mm-hmm.
So they want
Okay.
to go to other nations, obviously, probably starting within Asia first, and show them this is how we create these obentos and these healthy foods for our children and for our company employees. Why don't you also take on a sort of similar food delivery and food
Mm-hmm.
creation? And so, to do that, they're going to have to be more global minded. Some of their employees are going to have to speak English or multiple languages. So they do have a really huge go global goal. And I think it's wonderful for
Yes.
them. It's a little bit sad that domestically they've had to say no to incoming contracts, but it is good for them to also share their know-how to the rest of the world, I think.
Yes. You know, Joe, when I listen to you, I think that these are recurring themes. So the first recurring theme is keep your employees and allow them to grow.
Mm,
So you can allow them to grow by upskilling or reskilling them, giving them the opportunity to actually learn new things within the company so that you keep your talent and you make the best of them. And also you give them satisfaction as well because people want to grow, they want to learn, they want to progress, and this is, for me, this is a win-win situation. Also, the fact that the company did not lay off any workers, any
mm,
employees during the COVID pandemic
mm,
says a lot. And I would say that, well, good for them. I also can attest that many companies here, probably the, if not 100%, but 99% of the companies in Japan kept their employees throughout the pandemic. Of
mm,
course, the government helped with that as well. But it also tells you that the values they have here are not only in business, they are also, the values are shared by the whole society. And another recurring theme that you mentioned is keep learning and keep learning and also share with society or work for the society's good or
mm,
well-being. I
mm,
have seen all I think that all the companies you have talked about so far here with us, they somehow have, the well-being of society
mm,
in their mission statement, right? In their goals and everything. Which, and again, you mentioned many startups say, we want to be number one. I want to be number one, and it is me, I, we. But
yeah.
here, with these companies that have been resilient for decades and they continue to exist and work, so basically their goals are more externally oriented.
Mm,
I think this is also another recurring theme. And it is very interesting to see how maybe this is one of the reasons why they continue to exist,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
because they share their values, they share the social values, societal values here as well, but they also are able to communicate those values and get help from society. Not only help the society, but get help from the people around them, to help get that help back somehow. I don't know what your thoughts are on this, though.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you. There's a simple mantra in startup world that we say, no customers, no money, no company.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think it also relates to companies like this. If you don't connect to your customers and you don't work together with them, um, there will be no money coming in, and eventually you will have no company. So it's the same, right? It's the same approach or the same words, but the approach is slightly different. The approach,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, in how many times I've been to this program, I don't know, four times or five times, but every time we hear basically the same thing, just like you said. It's this repeating common theme throughout these SMEs is that the community at large, their
Mm-hmm.
society, is very integral to their own existence.
Right.
And that is something that I think startups who are coming to Japan should take on board and say, whatever it is that we're doing, we have to consider society.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yes, and maybe a key word we need to interject here is the stakeholder orientation
Mm,
or the stakeholder mindset.
mm,
Because, well, basically, when we talk about stakeholders, it means that this, well, or it's the company itself, it's the employees, it's the management, it's the customers, it's the community at large, it's also the all the suppliers along the the value chain, the supply chain, and everything. So it's a holistic approach to
mm.
business. I believe it's yeah, maybe it's important, for startups who come here to not only understand but also apply this approach to working in Japan and developing their startups here.
Right, right. Yeah, definitely. So I hope everybody enjoyed it. If those who were not able to join and are going to listen to
Hmm.
this later on, I hope that they can see there really is a lot of takeaways from these companies sharing their stories with us. Um,
Yeah,
because sometimes it's not something you would have expected. Like you would expect the standard answers, but they have been kind enough to really not tell us the secrets of the families, but the struggles of the family and
yeah,
how things evolved over time. You don't really get to read that in business textbooks.
not really.
Yeah,
Well, for some reason, these stories they are left out of the company's history and so on. But actually, they shape a lot of a big part of the company's philosophy and the way a company does business. So I believe that it is important to learn them as well. Yes, great. Well, thank you so very much for this
thank you,
story, Joe, and for
thank you,
letting
Maya.
us know the story of yet another company that has survived and has continues to be resilient despite all the difficulties it has been through. And well, I'm actually looking forward to the next session, which is going to
Yeah,
be in
yeah,
three
thank you.
weeks. Yes, and in the meantime, I want to say once again. A big thank you to our two sponsors, Kanakawa Jutaku or Kanachu at kanachu.com and House Inc. for allowing us to promote their services, advertise them, because we have worked with both James and Hannah, and we can vouch for them. So do not hesitate to contact one of them if you have a project in mind. And well, I would like to say to everybody who stayed with us, thanks a lot. Or if you couldn't, you can watch this later. So at the same links which we have already shared. We wish you a happy and productive midweek, and also a happy and productive reminder of the week. And we'll see you again this Sunday at 8:20 with Japanese politics, when Timothy Langley will be talking about the latest developments in Japanese politics, and also next week when Tim and I will be talking about business culture in Japan. Thanks a lot. And that's all for
Thank you.
today. Thank you.